What if the way you've been telling your life story reveals the secret to what is holding you back? Stories play an integral part in how we see not only ourselves, but the whole world. Stories are more than just an important part of communication. They also reveal hidden aspects of our inner talk, which can either support us or end up holding us back from the very things we want most in life, without us even realizing it. Join author, mindset coach, and award-winning singer-songwriter Carrie Rowan on her show, Look for the Good, every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. when she shares nuggets of wisdom from her internationally best-selling book, Tell a New Story, 5 Simple Steps to Release Your Negative Stories and Bring Joy to Your Life. Carrie's powerful stories and compelling guests will empower you to change how you look at your own life while giving you some powerful tools and tips you can use every day to help you feel better and move yourself closer to the life you've been longing to live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Look for the Good. I'm your host, Carrie Rowan, mindset strategist and coach, and I love sharing nuggets of wisdom about the stories we tell each other, but more importantly, those stories we tell ourselves. You can join me and my special guests as we share our personal stories of strength and triumph every week here on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. You can listen online on your mobile device, in your car, or ask Alexa to play Dream Vision 7 Radio. And tune in every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern to get real stories and tips on how to turn your story and your life around. And evolve with us as we unite humankind with universal love. So good to be here. I have Bree Noble waiting in the wings, everybody. Hello, Bree.
Hey.
Super excited. This is going to be such a great edition of Look for the Good. And as you guys know, we always like to find ways, mindset hacks that we can look for what's good, even when life is not going the way that we want it to, right? And the majority of the time, it seems to be doing that. So how do you get around that, right? How do you look for things that are good amidst stuff that you don't want? And you all know that I love talking about stories. And we're going to talk about our creative story today because Bree and I have a lot of stuff in common. I can't wait to tell you more about her. And creativity is one of those things, it's one of those stories we tell ourselves. A very common story that people come to me with is, oh, I'm not creative at all. But truly, we're all creative, right? Because we came from the creator, whatever you want to define that as. So we are all creative. We just express it in different ways. And Bree and I, both being singer-songwriters, express it through music, but there's so many ways that you can be creative. So when you start to hear yourself tell that little story of, ooh, I'm not creative, that's one of those stories you can kind of capture and take a look at and ask yourself, is that really true? Hey, I just made this beautiful gourmet meal. That's creation, right? Or maybe your house is decorated in a beautiful way, or you love putting outfits together. All these things are creativity. And even what you do with your children, we have to get really creative to raise children, right? So there's so many ways that we are creative. And I'm going to venture out to say that being creative is where we get that feeling of being alive. So whatever that is, and as we talk about that today, I want you guys to think about how you could be creative, even if you're not a musician. How could you express that creativity? Because when you do, that's the stuff that juices you up. It's the stuff that really makes you feel alive. So when you can find what that is for you, I really encourage you to embrace that. And without further ado, dun, 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 we have Bree. Do you mind if I read your little bio I have here, Bree?
Go for it.
People feel funny when they hear their own bio read, but I think it's good for us. So Bree Noble quit her corporate job as director of finance to pursue music. I love that. After a successful run as touring singer-songwriter, she founded Women of Substance Radio to promote quality female artists in all genres. She hosts the that's hard to say, Profitable Musician Show podcast, where she teaches musicians how to tap into multiple streams of income. She turned her signature framework, the musician's profit path, into a presentation for conferences like the ASCAP Experience and the Taxi Road Rally, and a best-selling book on Amazon. Drawing on her extensive experience as a musician, online marketer, and business owner, Bree's created several educational programs for musicians, including the Female Musician Academy and Rock Your Next Release. Love it. Welcome, Bree.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I know you get used to kind of hearing your bio and you're like, well, I should have changed that. I should have updated that.
When somebody else reads it, you can hear from such a different perspective, right?
Yep.
You'll be making edits soon. I know, I do the same thing. Well, Bree and I go way back, guys, because we met back during the whole radio experience, Women of Substance Radio, right? I remember applying with music, and you used to play our music, both my music from my first album, Almost Home, as well as when I was in the band Philly Stone. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. I love exposing people to music that they wouldn't normally have heard, and that's really why I created it.
That's awesome. I love that. I just love that. Um, you created it out of, you just have such passion because you did it yourself. You were on the road, you were a touring musician. Where did you get that courage to take the leap, as I like to say, and leave your corporate job to pursue your dream?
I mean, the you were talking about like kind of that the where we look for the good, right? Where we see things in life that maybe we can't see the good at the moment, but we see it later. And for me, it was this experience where I had developed Crohn's disease and I was really, really sick and I ended up in the hospital for about 13 days. And at that point, I was still working at my corporate job. I had a 1 year old. And basically, because it was a genetic thing, but basically, because of all the stress I was under, working where I was working, having a 1 year old, and, my body just couldn't take it. And I was losing weight. I couldn't keep food down, all that. And being in a situation like that, it's like, where's the good? That is what helped me crystallize what was important to me,
Mm.
what, my purpose on this earth is, and how can I figure out how to make that happen? Because I had been trying to do music. I was a music major, along with a business major. But when I was working as a director of finance at the opera, I was watching all these opera artists like living their dream, going to all these, performances and everything. But then I was basically in the back room writing their paychecks and trying on the side to do music, but I didn't really know how to do it. I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin to put myself out there. And having this experience of being in the hospital and having so much time to think about it, and being like, well, if I get out of here, because I'm not sure I will, because I'm so sick, how do I want my life to be different? How do I want to move forward in a way where I feel like I'm really living my purpose? And so that was kind of where it was all born. The seeds were all there, they were planted, but I just didn't know how to put them all together into something that I could actually do. And when you get to that point, it's like if I don't figure this out, it's not happening. You figure it out. You figure like, what do I have to lose? I may as well try this, even though in your mind you might be thinking, oh, but this, not that, all the things that you try to talk yourself out of it. When you get to that position, when you're in the hospital, you're like, well, why shouldn't I try this? Like, what do I have to lose? So that was
Wow.
kind of where the shift happened, and I left my corporate job. Um, I ended up touring as a mom of a 2 and 3 year old and figuring out how to make that happen because that I knew was my purpose and it was what I wanted to do in life to have real joy.
I love it. Real joy. Yes, you're speaking my language. And it's really, that's an incredible story. You don't hear that story often said that way because you were sort of in you were in a life and death situation where you're looking ahead. You're like, you're able to have that moment of clarity of contemplating. I like to call it the rocking chair test, where I get clients of mine think about, when they're in the rocking chair, they're 90 or so, looking back at their life.
Mhm.
And I love that because it also really embraces that no regret mindset, right? Like I have to. If you don't do it now, then when? And
Yeah.
like you said, the mind always steps in that moment, doesn't it? You mentioned that a little bit. The mind loves to try to keep us safe, so it starts convincing you that it's a bad idea. Oh no, 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 Bree, you should stay here, stay in your comfort zone. You don't know what you're doing. You're not very good. All those things that our mind starts to tell us, right?
Yep.
I know
Yeah,
it
but
well.
that's where I think, creativity, sparking the creativity can be that gift because while I was also in the hospital, like I had the spark for the song that ended up being the title track of my album, Healing Waters. And I think that kind of was what pushed me over the edge. It's like, I can do this. Like, I am a songwriter. I have something important to say.
That's huge. That's huge. And I feel like, and I know you're going to agree, that that's where the best music comes from. The
Mm.
best music isn't something contrived because somebody needs to fill a void for something that's missing. The best music comes right here from our heart. It comes from the truly lived experience.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I feel like that's the stuff that other people can feel, right? Everything that you went through with that song, the whole album that came out of it, people are connecting through the feeling, like, oh, I feel that too.
Yeah, and I had to let go of all these preconceived ideas of what having a music career was. You know, when you're in your 20s, you think you're going to be a rock star, you think you're going to, do this and that. And when you get to the point where you're coming out of the hospital just being glad that you're able to actually leave the hospital and go home, you're thinking to yourself, I don't care about any of that rock star stuff. I want to just have music in my life all the time and be able to do it as much as I can. And it's not going to look like I thought it did. It's now going to look like I go perform for a lot of moms groups because they have free babysitting for my 3-year-old. And, I'm going to perform for a lot of churches because that's my background. And those are the people that are going to relate to me and the stories that I'm going to be able to tell, speaking stories and singing stories. And so that was the route that I took. And it made complete sense because that's who I was. It's just that before that, I was trying to kind of hide who I was because I wanted to be this other thing that people could consider as a rock star or a music star.
Yeah, absolutely. Same. I did the same thing. Left my corporate job after 10 years, jumped off that ladder, and then found myself with young kids shortly after that. So I just, bundled them up and took them with me with my guitar. And so, okay, now I'm going to be, oh, I guess I'll be a preschool music teacher because this one's in preschool now, right? So you start getting you start getting creative, right? Because I was already knee deep into leaving that job. Now kids come on the premises and you're like, I'm just going to take them with me. So it became a lifestyle, right? It becomes a lifestyle. You go to the moms groups because it had free babysitting. I'm going to the preschool because my daughter's already there. And then a really good friend of mine that I hooked up with to partner up and create a duo, her kids were the same age. So it worked out perfectly for us. Let's go to the library circuit. And there's always creative ways to make it a living, that people don't normally think about, which I know is one of your specialties.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why I focus so much on like streams of income, and they do need to be based around your life circumstances at that moment, what you enjoy doing, what you're good at doing, but also like, here's the things that I have to do in my life. How can I fit it around that? And like you said, with the kids in preschool and all that, or, I stopped touring when my kids got older and they were in school because I didn't want to try to drag them out of school. I didn't want to try to homeschool them. I didn't want them to miss things. And so I had to change what I was doing. Then I had to come off the road. And so how could I, at that point I was like, I had already started Women of Substance and I'm like, this thing is really cool and people are enjoying it. Let's see if I can grow that instead so I can stay home and not be touring. So you just kind of have to pivot based upon where your life is at the moment.
So important to be able to pivot. I think that flexibility is super important as an entrepreneur. I'm still constantly pivoting my business. We all are, especially when COVID hit and we had
Yep.
to really pivot. That's when I really pivoted full time into my book because I lost all my long-standing gigs at all the
Mhm.
family services organizations, the libraries that used to call me. Nobody was doing kids music anymore. So
Yep. Senior centers, all of them. Yeah.
that was so hard for us musicians, but we got through it and we became stronger, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it just gave us more tools that we can use in
Yeah.
our tool belt.
Yeah, exactly. So, talk a little bit about your book. So, I think it's so cool that we both started off by singing our stories in 3-minute songs, right? And so, you have a book and I have a book, and I think that's really cool. Talk about the musician's profit path, and the 5-stage blueprint to create massive growth in your fan base and sustainable income in your music career, because that, as we know, is not looked at as easy to do.
Yeah. I mean, it basically grew out of how I was helping artists. It's all started with Women of Substance, where I was, promoting the music of these artists. And I would see that these artists have fantastic music, but I'm like, I literally can't find anything about you online. Like, where are you? Where are you marketing your music? Oh, and then they'd say, I don't know how to market my music. I'm hoping to get a label to do it for me. And I'm like, that's not going to happen. And so I started kind of sharing what I had done when I was promoting my own music and then promoting Women of Substance and then later on promoting, the Academy and all the things I do now. It's like that's all marketing that you can learn from to use to promote your music to build income streams. And so it grew super organically. And so then, starting in 2015, I had my Female Musician Academy. And in there, I was just kind of honing all these things that I was helping artists with. And I thought, it really does look like kind of a five-stage blueprint for a career. And I think the hardest thing for artists is that they are in stage one and they see people in, say, stage three, and they're like, oh, I suck. Like, compared to them, I'm terrible. Like, I'm never going to get to that point. Or they don't even realize that that artist is in stage three. So they're comparing themselves and thinking they're comparing apples to apples, and they're not. And that can shut people down before they even are able to ascend to the other stages because they think, oh, well, if I was good enough, I would have been where that person is already.
Mm.
And so that's kind of why I set it up that way. And I'm also very much of like let's check things off a list. Let's, be organized, do things in order so we feel like we're making progress. And so I set the book up that way. It's like every chapter, at the end of the chapter, there's literally a checklist that you can check off. Did I do this? Did I do this? Am I now ascending to the next stage?
I love that. It's like a map. I love that. We need
Yep.
it. I wish I had that book back when I was trying to figure it all out.
Me
Oh my
too.
gosh. You wrote the book that you needed, right? Because it is so tricky. And I love what you said too about comparing somebody, because comparison, as we know, is the thief of all joy. But you don't compare your chapter one with somebody's conclusion chapter, right? Like, and it's so easy to do that, especially with social media. We're so externally faced in this world now. So I love that you give people just the exact blueprint to follow, through your book. That is truly, truly something that can help a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is I outlined how these are the common emotions that you experience in these phases, and that's helped a lot of people because they're like, oh, so that's why I'm feeling that way, or they're not feeling so alone when they're going through that. Because that's a thing, indie artists, a lot of times we're an island, and that's why I've been so big on community in building my academy and other parts of my community. It's like you need someone to bounce ideas off of. You need someone to celebrate with you. You need someone to drown your sorrows with you when something goes badly.
Totally, and hold you accountable, right? And
Yep.
I feel like that's one of the big parts of community like that. I love that you organize. I've never heard that before. Based on the emotions that you're going to feel as you go through the stages. That is so intuitive. I love that. Really, really powerful.
Yeah, I'm really glad I did that because it just helps people. It helps people feel like that they're not doing it wrong. You know what I mean? If I'm feeling that, it's okay. Like other
Mhm.
people who've been where I am have felt that way too.
Yeah, that is so key. And it helps you, it uplifts you and lets you just move along and not get too consumed by the emotion, thinking there's something wrong with you or what you're doing. I love that.
Yeah.
And there's so many emotions that come up as an artist as we're writing, and then we're standing there pouring our heart out in front of an audience. It is truly, I tell people all the time, you think, yeah, people always get hung up on the fear of public speaking. I think that's harder. I can talk all day in public, but to open your heart and play a song about something grueling that you went through, is really something special,
It's funny how musicians though can do that. Like
right?
some musicians can they can barely say, and this is my song, but then they'll just pour their heart out in front of an audience, like the deepest, darkest thoughts, right? It's
Right.
so interesting how we are wired.
It really is. And that's the superpower. That's the superpower right there. It doesn't matter that you can't tell a good story about the song, because let the song stand on its own. Let it have legs. Let it tell a story. I love that. And it's transformative. Like, I love watching The Voice because you've got all these young, exciting people that come on, right? And they appear one thing and then they can open their mouth and completely transform the whole room.
Yeah, yeah, and story is just so important. It really connects people to us. Like they'll remember. I always say about Healing Waters, it's like they can't remember the name of the song, but they'll go, "I want a copy of that song where you wrote it in the hospital."
Right?
you know?
That's so true. Right, because people can relate. They always want to know. And I always love telling those little stories between the songs, right? And that's what started me thinking about my book. I always knew I was going to write a book, right? And as you probably did too, but it's all those little anecdotal things that come out, that people come up afterwards and say to you, "Oh, Bree, tell me more about that story in the hospital or that song."
Yeah.
Um, and it really, really touches somebody. That's a beautiful thing. So we're gonna go for a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Bree Noble. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Look for the Good. We're having this amazing conversation here with Bree, and I love all your stories. I find it so interesting. Everything you do is really focused on female entrepreneurs and musicians and the Female Academy, and of course, Women to Substance Radio. And the music business is such a male dominated business, right? And
Mhm.
so was finance, where you came from, as was my background. I came from a corporate career, totally male dominated. So talk about that. How did you use that, I guess, as a leverage to help you want to even do it more? Because I found it to be inspiring in a lot of ways. What did you find?
Yeah, when I think back to even the finance world, like when I was on the executive team at the opera, I was the only female. Like, all the upper people were male.
Hmm.
And I was young too. Like, and compare all these people in their 50s, and I was 28, 29 or so, and so it was a good testing ground or experience to get me to realize that it's kind of like that in every new area that I've gone into. So going in the music industry, performing, obviously I'm performing for a lot of moms groups, churches and stuff. So
Hmm.
it was a lot more, female oriented. But then when I would be out there, going up trying to get awards and things like that, it was very male dominated.
Hmm.
And then the reason I started Women of Substance is that like I didn't see a lot of women. Like I wanted to see people like me to inspire me. And when I would turn on the radio or Sirius XM or anything, this is even before like Spotify playlists and stuff,
Hmm.
the number of women was so small that were on there, like less than 20%, more like even 10%
Wow.
back then. Because we're talking about, I started Women of Substance in 2007. So it was
Wow.
really pioneering. And it
Hmm.
was always a thing where I was like, I couldn't I was bothered by the fact that I had to create like a separate stage for women, right?
Right.
Instead of being like, what I really want is for women to be equally represented on these other places. But I realized that this was the way that we could get there. Because if I highlight them over here and then they discover like all these great women, then they'll say, okay, they are good enough to be integrated into these other places and,
Mm.
get more equal airtime. So it was always kind of like this thing where I was like, well, I'm making a separate stage for women. Does that make sense? But over time, I thought, this is the best way that I'm going to be able to draw attention to really good people, really good music. And so, when I did that, it just naturally grew into, well, I'm going to help female artists then with marketing and business because I had a giant list of people that were those people, because I was helping
Yeah.
all these artists, get their music out there. So it was a natural connection. But then I just kind of realized I love working with women. Like I have that experience of like I did this while I was a mom. I did this this whole leaving corporate thing and I worked in corporate when I was, breastfeeding and trying to balance this and that. Like I can understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And that's why I love working with women and just the different stages that you go through with a family and, getting older and, all the things that we go
Uh,
through as women as we
hmm.
change.
Yeah.
I felt like I could really relate to artists that way. And that's why I ended up working specifically with women. And I've kind of come full circle in a way because I expanded my brand. I did all these summits during COVID. I was helping artists release their music, and it was not just women.
Mm.
But now I'm just like, I crave working with women. That's my favorite thing to do. And so I'm coming full circle and just doubling down on working with as many as women as I can.
I love that. I love how it came full circle because again, we all had a pivot during COVID, right?
Yeah.
But then you came back to your roots of what felt most aligned for you.
Hmm.
Um, And I feel like that's the secret to business. I feel like that's the secret to being successful is really finding the thing that you align with, because then when you're aligned, you're passionate about it.
Definitely,
You know, it,
definitely. And you should put your little feelers out here and let's try this, let's try that. And like when I became a podcaster, that was totally a new thing. And I didn't know if I was gonna like it, but I ended up loving it. But you got to try your things and then find the things that are yours and keep those and not feel like, oh, well, that was a wasted test. No, it's never a wasted test as long as you know that that's it helps lead you to the things that you do love.
Agreed, because it's so important. I tell this to my clients all the time. You got to know what you don't want, because knowing what you don't want is so many steps closer to what you do want. So just realizing that and figuring all that out will often lead you right where it is that you want. Um, and that's where your purpose is, right? Is really fulfilling that lifelong purpose, that call inside of us. And music is definitely one of those things.
Yep, definitely.
And I always, if you don't follow that calling and you don't follow that huge pull in your soul and your heart, then it'll start following you. It'll start knocking on your door.
Yeah, you'll definitely start to feel like there is something missing here.
It really will. Like, I mean, even when during COVID, when I'm like, okay, I lost all these gigs. I was in the middle of writing my book. I had a publisher. I was like, I think this is the universe telling me to really go all in on my book. So I'm going to do that. Of course, it included my music too. But, um, and then I got all in that, and then the podcast. And you're always trying to find a way to weave the music into everything you do,
Hmm.
which I think is the beauty of it. Because that's really what our superpower is. Because when you look around, you're like, hey, wait, I can't take these skills for granted, because not everybody's able to pick up an instrument, write a song, and then deliver it, right? It's a unique skill set.
It's true. And even though I'm not really producing new music these days because I'm so busy with other things, I have really gotten into try to bring back some of my music and put it on the radio, on the podcast, because it's like, it's so easy to promote other people. And I can be the hugest cheerleader for those people, but I'm also finding that when I put my music on there, they come back to me and say, "Hey, it's so cool to hear your music. Like I've always wondered what your music was like, and it's really good and it inspires me." So.
Wow, I love that. Again, full circle, right? You're like, we sometimes forget and come back to it. I did some of that recently, just going back to my first album and listening to some of the songs on it and stuff, because I was doing a little sync work, and I was like, wow, hey, I kind of like this.
Not only that, but it's this perspective. My first album is perspective from 35-year-old me or whatever,
Mm,
and 33-year-old me, and it's so different from now.
so different,
To go
absolutely.
back and listen to that, it's like, oh, that's so interesting. Now I know why, how I got here.
It's funny because we used to talk about, my music partner and I, one of my best friends, we would talk about how songs evolve. Like we might have a song and be playing it for a while, and we think we know what it's about, but then that song starts to evolve, and we're like, wait a second, this is really what it's about. And I feel like that can change through time. I can go back and listen to an old song, right? And hear it in a new way, like you're saying, with a different perspective.
Yep. Or it's about something different now because your life has changed.
Totally. But yet it still applies.
Yep. Yep.
It's so we yeah, that could be a whole chapter in that new book that I'm going to write about morphing songs, because they do. It's like your stories more, and so do your songs, as your life is changing, and the meaning of them. So I love that. It's one of the greatest moments. Another great moment is when you have that inspiration, right? Like, talk a little bit about that, because not everybody understands. As a songwriter, we have different ways that we write. So you might get this brilliant moment of inspiration where you just download a song in like a half hour. And of course, we love those, but it doesn't always happen that way. Talk about your process a little bit. How does creativity come to you when you're in that writing mode?
I've never been that person with the downloads except that one time when I was in the hospital. And that's why I talk about it because it was so different for me.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's like I get an idea, I start free writing on it, lyric wise. I usually start with lyrics. Sometimes I start with chords and see if those chords say something to me that says this song should be about this type of thing, and then I can free write on it. But I also have found that collaboration is so great because I can get so stuck in my ways of the same chords and the same progressions and the same even like tempo and, vibe and everything. And just working with someone that has a completely different process made all the difference for me later on when I was working with somebody who like literally doesn't play an instrument, and she would just have melodies that would download for her, and she'd just send them to me on a voice message, and I would be like, oh my gosh, how did she do that? Like, I don't just get melodies out of the air, but some people do. And
Yeah.
then she's looking at me going, well, how did you come up with those lyrics? Those are awesome. Like, I don't do lyrics.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, again, back to the community piece, it's one of the things, look at Nashville. All they do is just collaborate with each other. They're always mixing around
Yep.
songwriters. And it's
Yep.
good because what you said before, that word perspective, right? Because I might hear something, you might hear something different, but together we could create this other thing that's like this third mind in the room, you know?
Yeah, that was something we did during COVID in the Female Musician Academy. We had a Female Musician Academy songwriters group, and still I'm getting songs that are sent to me for Women of Substance Radio that they say like, "Oh yeah, I wrote this during that time, and I collaborated with this person that's also in the academy." So it's so fun to see like, it's like your children. It's like these are the people that I brought together and they created
Yeah,
something.
I love that. I love that. I feel like creating community is really the most important part of all the things. Um, because like for so many reasons, just because you don't feel so alone, and it is kind of an isolating thing when you're looking at a blank piece of paper, writing a song by yourself, and also just that, also sharing of best practices. How does that work in the community?
We had a person that was kind of overseeing it, and maybe like she'd do a challenge each, like, this week your challenge is to write a lyric about this, or write 5 lines about this particular subject, or write a melody with just without an instrument, or just trying to get them outside of their normal boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And those kinds of exercises can really help. I remember when I first started writing, I would go through songwriter books and like do some of the exercises because so many of them help me get outside of the way that I normally write. And so I think that can really help. But I do think collaborating is one of the best ways to get outside of your own box.
Totally. Yes, it pushes you out. We need to be pushed out of that comfort zone, right? And that
Mhm.
really does push you out of the comfort zone in a good way. Really just to try something new, and you just never know what's going to come out of that. Think of all the amazing collaborations in the musical world that came out of two people who have a different perspective. It's such a beautiful thing.
Yep. Yeah. And like even different genres coming together.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like that. Look at all the country music people getting with pop stars now and rap
Right.
stars, and right?
Yes.
I love that. I think that's so exciting because you just don't know what to expect and what's going to come out of it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's super powerful. Um, so tell us a little story. I'd love to hear, do you have like a little mantra or something that you say to yourself when you are having a hard time seeing what's good around you, when you're kind of stuck in something? What's something, a go-to, or maybe a mentor told you one time, or something that you use?
Oh boy. I honestly, I music is what I use.
Yeah.
Like I go to the songs that either remind me of my past, that things are going to be okay, like songs that I listened to when I went through hard times in the past. And it reminds me, oh yeah, I wasn't always listening to this song. Like at some point I said, I don't need to listen to this song anymore because my life is feeling good and I don't need to. Sometimes you have like those pity party songs
Yeah.
that you
Totally.
listen to because it's like, I just need to wallow right now, you know? So I
Absolutely.
might do that, but then that always leads me to get out of it. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, I think for me, music in general has been that way, whether it's connecting spiritually, like because I work at a church now.
Mhm.
I'm a worship director at a church. So, Sometimes even when I'm having a bad day and in my worship director job, it's like I just remind myself, remember, music is why you're here. Think about the music. And then when I focus on that and like, I think of it as like creating something out of nothing. Like just to think that I could create something out of nothing that touches people, like whatever else is going on in my life that suddenly seems secondary, that I can do that.
I love that you're sort of widening your lens, right? Like looking at the
Hmm.
big picture of everything, changing that perspective. I love that. That's really beautiful. And we're going to go for a quick break, guys. We'll be right back after a message from our sponsor. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Look for the Good. We're here with Bree, and we were just talking a little bit about. I just love this conversation. There's so many different pieces and places that we're going to. You talked a little bit about spirituality, and I feel like music really, I mean, I've got a sign over here. It says music heals your soul, right? It's one of those things that cleanses and washes us and brings us back to ourself. It's really soul nurturing. Talk a little bit about your thoughts on spirituality and music and how those two collide.
For me, they've always been like inseparable, honestly, because I think I've always written music from the perspective of my spiritual quest, and wanting to understand myself, my place in this world, my relationship to God. And so, in some ways, I've used music to even like explore my own feelings around that. Just like
Mm.
I said earlier, you can't say something to someone or ask a question, but you can ask it in music. At least I can. Like
Right,
that's
so true.
like I can't articulate it somehow if I were to like ask a pastor a question or try to understand a verse or something like that. But I can ask those questions in a song somehow. It's easier that way, and then kind of explore like my thoughts around it. But just for me, I feel like that's always been the way that I worship is through music. Like it doesn't hit me any other way, like in the same way. And when I had little kids and I wasn't like on the worship team and I'd be in church and I'd be like, it felt so passive. Like I was really having a hard time connecting. But when I
Mhm.
was up on the stage and leading worship, and now I'm in charge of everything, but I even get those, I still get those moments, even though I'm in charge of everything, where I can like lose myself in the song and really be thinking about what the words are saying, and that I'm actually affirming them, and connecting. And I haven't experienced that with, I try, I listen to the sermon, I read the Bible verses. It just doesn't connect to me like music does.
Uh, I agree 100%. It's just, I don't know, it's the magical combination. I mean, they say music, especially harmonies, are the voice of angels, right? That
Mm,
angels speak in that language. And it does. When the whole thing comes together, and the melody can be magical too, and the instrumentation, and it's like this perfect soup, right? With all the ingredients that you added in, and then it all sort of has to cook together, and you have this beautiful, beautiful experience. I think music is an experience, right?
it is, and the ability for me to be the conduit. I love that. And every once in a while, I was thinking this last Sunday, like there's a song that just fits so perfectly in my voice. And when I sing it, I feel like I sound amazing. Like I'm not egotistical. Like every other song is like, it's fine. But like this particular song, I'm like, I sound freaking amazing on this song. And I'm just so thankful that like I hope that the way I'm feeling about it is being imparted to other people, because if I'm feeling good about how I'm sounding, then that means I know that I'm able to communicate really well, and then hopefully that's able to get the words across to them. And I love being able to have that like almost two-way conversation with people when I'm performing live.
Oh my gosh, it's so that, isn't it? And I'm sure everybody feels like as if you're feeling, that's the feeling you're giving out, right? We're all energy. Um, and I love that because it is so two-way. And I feel like a lot of people don't understand that if you've never performed on stage and had that connection, the connection with the audience is really 50% of the concert. You can go and play your heart out, but if this is a sort of a dead audience in front of you, we feel that when there's
Yeah,
no feedback, no energy relaying back and forth. I feel like that's really where the magic is.
it is. And I've come up with so many things on the fly when there's a really responsive audience. I'll tell a story or I'll say something that I never said before, and it just happens because I'm being spontaneous.
Mm,
And that really only happens when you feel like the audience are in it with you.
totally agree. And those, I feel like, are the most beautiful moments.
Yeah,
Yeah, when you come up with that or you say that or everybody laughs at something unexpectedly. Um, and then you try to remember those and bring them back, but it's never quite the same if you don't have that feel with the audience, you know?
exactly, exactly. But you can, like you said, it's like, oh, I'm going to say that every time now. That worked really well.
Right? I have this friend that used to say, it was a singer-songwriter friend who used to say, Carrie, there's never any new material, just new audiences.
Mm,
But yeah, you make a notation, you're like, ooh, that worked great. You're constantly honing and honing. But I also feel like, it's what we bring to the stage that allows them, it almost gives them permission to step into their, whatever that juiciness is in our energy field that day when we step onto the stage, almost becomes contagious for them. They can feel what you're offering and then they offer it back, right? It's this reciprocal thing.
absolutely. I've been to concerts like that, and it's so great. And I've been to concerts where it seems like the fourth wall is just so thick.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, they're over here doing this thing. It may as well be a video because
right.
they're not even like responding, like they're not even looking at the audience very well.
Yeah, I totally get that. We went and saw my youngest daughter is like such an incredible singer. She's unbelievable. She's really young, but she can just walk in the room and just take the mic at an open mic and just bring the place to tears.
Wow.
Um, and so she's always, Mom, we got to see that. Oh, you're not gonna believe. She loves music of like our generation. So we went and saw Sarah McLachlan and her tour
Ooh,
right this summer when she was in Boston. Wow, she
she's
was.
incredible.
Oh my
I've seen
God,
her a couple times live, I think.
she was so connecting with the audience. Like it was an experience, and my nephew came with us and he just couldn't, he was like, wow, Auntie Carrie, that was like, she was just so connected. I've never seen anything like it. And every song she sang was more powerful than the next. It was
Mm,
really, it was the stories, right? It was the stories that she told in between and what she remembered about those songs from way back, because it was really sort of a reminiscent tour.
yeah. Oh man, you picked one of my heroes. Like she was really the person I wanted to emulate coming out of, I graduated from college in 94 when Fumbling Towards Ecstasy came out.
Yes.
And I was like, this is my thing.
Totally. Yes, I have loved her. Followed her all through the Lilith Fair, right? Like that's when
Mhm.
we had MySpace and there was a contest she had where get on the Lilith Fair if you had so many things. And so we had this contest running. And a friend and I, we were neck and neck we were in the top of, and we even had news people come in and interview us. These
Ah,
two Northborough moms are, neck and neck in this race to get in the stage. And we thought we had it, but then somebody swooped in. MySpace, remember that? That was a long time ago.
yes, I do.
I'm really dating myself.
No, no, no. I started Women of Substance in 2007, and that was one of the big ways that I grew our audience was with MySpace.
Yeah, MySpace, man, that was the first thing of its kind. That was truly revolutionary at the time. Yeah, that's how I got my music out there. And then Reverb Nation and all
Oh
those
yeah.
things started coming out, right? Reverb Nation is still there. Yeah, it's amazing. And each step just gets you closer and closer. But it's a beautiful thing now. And I love that we're not dependent on record companies to make our
Ah,
career. We can make our own career.
yeah, let me tell you, I started my career on mp3.com. Do you remember
Yes,
that?
yes, I love
Yeah,
it.
my husband and I, we did a Christmas album, and our Christmas album went to like number one on mp3.com, and we were on
Wow.
like their compilation CD, and it's like that was so long ago. It's so different.
Woo! That was a big deal. That's like when we're first starting to realize, wow, we can get our music out in different ways. And, we don't have to be like all striving for this end all be all. We can
Yeah.
do it the way we want to. And isn't that the true, really what a true artist wants to do, anyways?
Thank goodness. Yes.
Amen. I know I'm saying your words right here. Well, this has been the most incredible show. I love hearing from you and all the cool things you're doing for female musicians and artists. And so tell us, where can those female musicians who are listening to you right now, they're like, I want to meet Bree. I want to know more about her. I want to get her book. Where can they find you?
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, you definitely want to go check out Women of Substance, wosradio.com. We are a podcast on all podcasting platforms. If you want to check out Female Musician Academy, femalemusicianacademy.com. If you feeling alone and you really want to work with some other female artists, that's the place to go. And then my podcast that help musicians to market and build a business, profitablemusician.com. There's a podcast there. There's all kinds of resources. Join our newsletter, and I would love to help you build your music career.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all your wisdom with us. It's truly been incredible. The only thing missing is I wish that you had broken out into song.
Oh,
Next time we'll plan some.
definitely. I have to warm up first.
Of course, of course. So thank you so much. I see your piano behind you. Thank you so much for coming on the show and enlightening us with all of your wisdom, Bree.
You are so welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Take care. Remember, everybody, go to my website, carrierowan.com, and sign up for the newsletter for the podcast. You can get all the behind the scenes stuff, all of Bree's and I's giggles between the show. And remember, it's never too late to live your best story. Be well, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to Look for the Good with your host, Carrie Rowan, best-selling author and mindset coach. Join us every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. right here at Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. If you weren't able to catch an episode, no worries. Just visit our website to find all the archived episodes of Look for the Good on demand, so you don't miss a thing. And remember, it's never too late to live your best story. For additional resources or to find out about how you can work with Carrie directly, visit carrierowan.com for more details.